Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world.
Welcome, Compassionators. So glad you're joining us this week for the Infuse Compassion podcast. Amy and I are thrilled to have a guest with us. This is a guest that it was a former guest that introduced us, and we just started making connections. That's one of the parts of doing this podcast that I really love, is that we just continue to get connected with wonderful people, wonderful thought leaders who are working on infusing compassion into the world. And so, Amy, my friend, would you do the honors of introducing our Compassionators to our guest this week?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to share with you a kindred spirit, Susan LaPlae Miller. She is a speaker, author, and founder of Pieces of I, with decades of experience helping organizations and individuals align purpose, values, and meaningful impact. Guided by her mantra, know your values, live your values, Susan's work centers on compassionate leadership, self-trust, and sustainable contribution, especially during seasons of transition. Through writing, speaking, and workshops, she helps move people from awareness to action while staying grounded, connected, and intentional. Susan, thank you so much for saying yes to being a guest on the Infuse Compassion podcast. Welcome.
Thank you both. It's so nice to be here, and I absolutely love what you're doing. Compassion is a core value of mine that we need more of in the world. And so to see you putting a whole podcast together about infusing compassion is like just a dream.
Oh, yes. It's, there's such a need for it, right? I mean, I think regardless of what's happening in the world, there's a need, regardless of what century, what decade. But I think particularly now, wow, compassion, it's a tool that any toolbox should not be without. So, and I love that this is your jam, like it's not peripheral for you. You're like in it. So I'm so excited. Before we dig in, I do want to give a shout out. Mark made mention to the connection. Linda Grizzly is actually, who was also a guest on the Infuse Compassion podcast. She's the person who connected us. And so big shout out, thank you to Linda for making the connection. So in the intro, Susan, we talked about your mantra, know your value, live your values. I would love for you to share a little bit more about this mantra. How did that come to be your mantra, and why is that so important?
Thank you for asking about my favorite topic. I think we've all experienced good career experiences and not so great career experiences. I think throughout our careers, things happen, whether it's in a work environment or even it could be amongst friends where you feel maybe you're not being treated as you would prefer, or you're out of alignment with your own values. So I've had those great experiences, like back in the manufacturing days when I worked at Motorola. I was on a team where we worked together and we trusted each other, and we took every challenge and we worked as a team. And I know how that feels, and I know how it feels to win as a team, right? So, and when there's a challenge, there's nobody like taking the credit or pushing blame, because you say, okay, how are we going to pivot? What are we going to do? In contrast, before the pandemic, I was in an experience where I had the opposite, where There was a misalignment of values, and I didn't feel necessarily respected and that kind of thing. So during the pandemic is when I had actually created my company before the pandemic was officially started. And I really focused on like, what is the difference? And when you know your value, when you understand that you're valuable, you have unique skills, abilities, a purpose, but also everyone around you does too. And so when you know your own value and you can respect your team's value in the same kind of way, that if everybody brings their best, then together we're better. And then in addition to that, of course, living your values, knowing what those core pillars are and those foundational elements of like, if I'm in an environment where there is respect and compassion and authenticity, I'm going to feel more of who I am, right? I'm going to feel in alignment that it helps me make decisions as well. So, I just felt like I don't ever want to put myself into a situation again where I'm out of alignment with me. And so you have to have that courage, and requires choices and boundaries and all of those, learning to trust yourself. And, sometimes you'll be disappointed, but, it's okay. They help affirm your decisions and keep you in a good space so that, you can kind of bridge that insight into action.
So I love that. Where my mind goes to is the person that doesn't quite know that yet. Like I look at myself and I really didn't start to know my value until I was in my late 40s. I really didn't. Maybe I'm a late bloomer, I don't know, whatever, but that's just my truth. Is I was really looking for other people to validate me instead of having that inner confidence of, Amy, you just as you are valuable and you are important. So what do you say to that person, me, X years ago, right? That is doesn't quite see that.
No, and I think that's very common. I think that, same thing, right? So um, I look at that, and, that I've also done positive intelligence where, I learned about saboteurs and all of those things that we seek to be the perfectionist and all of these things that are trying to pull us to do something. But it's that learning to trust. It's that learning to stop and listen and not seek beyond who you are. It's really, really listening to yourself. And, like this morning, I'm like, oh, I should prepare for this podcast. And then I'm like, okay, go do yoga. Because the best way I can prepare is to get out of my head and just be, and recognize that I have something to offer, and it's different from, we can all talk about compassion, but we can also bring something to it on our own. And so don't try to compete with your friends or your coworkers. Recognize that each of you has that gift. Each of you has something. And, it takes time, and it takes years of, I've got 4 adult children myself, and I've got 5 siblings. I had to learn through all of that, that you can't raise your children the same. You can't treat everyone. You can try, but it's impossible because everyone's different. And I think that respecting those differences is where you start to respect your own differences.
I love that. I'm interested also in the name of your company, Pieces of I. And because I can be EYE or I as an individual, it's the individual one. It's pieces of the letter I. Tell me what prompted that as the name of your company. When people see pieces of I, what do you want them to think?
So I'm so into teams and partnerships and all of that. And it's that every person, place, and experience changes who you are. Those are the pieces of I. I am different today because I have met you. I will be different because you are now a piece of my I. And the I isn't necessarily about me. The I is more of a collective. I guess I intentionally did peace and peace because I think there is peace when you honor the collective, but there's also, we're made of all these pieces. And until the day I'm gone, I will continue to change and evolve. So I can't expect me to stay the same. And from a partnerships perspective, every challenge, every, say you're introducing a new product to the market or a new program or something, you might need different partnerships to bring that to market. You might need different team members within your own organization. This project may require more financial help, and this project may require more of a sales perspective, or you might have to bring in different pieces. So I like the play on the words, and I like that it represents partnerships and teamwork in a way that also works as an individual or a company.
So I want to dig a little bit deeper, and I want to really hear from you. We're gonna you've used the word pivot a few times, so we're gonna pivot. All right. So what happens when we confuse compassion with over responsibility?
Ooh, a lot of people do that. I've been guilty of that myself. I grew up as a fixer. That's being a fixer is an example of over responsibility. It's taking it on. It's carrying things that might not necessarily be yours to carry. We can care for one another without fixing and doing and jumping in above and beyond where we should be. So compassion is not me fixing your problem. It's me listening without judgment and then helping you through it. And so there has to be some boundaries. There has to be boundaries, whether it's if I'm trying to help somebody else, I can't overstep where I begin and where we begin and end, because we both matter in it, right? And if you do over responsibility, it can lead to burnout. So if you're a manager and oh, well, my team can't get this done, so I'm going to do everything. That's not sustainable, right? And it also doesn't respect the people that you might be working with. So I think it's a danger that it can be confused. And I think that if we can remember that it doesn't mean we have to fix. Listening alone is huge, so that you can, affect a better change together.
Yeah.
I want to follow that path just a little farther, if I could, Susan, because you talked about at work, if a leader is trying to jump in and fix everything, that leads to burnout. I want to take that to the next level up. What if you see others who are great workers and who are compassionate team members, and they may not see themselves as overstepping in that way, but you can see the path that they're on, that they're headed toward. This isn't sustainable. It's great. It's helpful for the team in the moment, but it's not sustainable. How do you help others as a leader to not overstep so that it leads to the problems you just talked about?
Well, I think part of it is helping them to understand that the different team members and their roles, and helping them to look at for themselves, like, where do you want to be? Is this leading to the career you want to have? If you're doing everyone else's job, that's not necessarily going to lead to your own best career. So it's helping them to take that step back and look at not only what do they need, but also their teammates. I have been a jack of all trades, growing up, youngest of 6, I'm the mother of 4. And yeah, I've had to learn the hard way with my siblings, that, I can't do everything. And I don't, it's not really actually respectful. So like teaching people to take that step back without judgment. I think that's the point. It's like if you go in and say shaming is shame, blame. I mean, that's how we create really bad environments. But teaching without that shame, without that judgment, is where really I find it most helpful. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Well, and I think that, staying kind of on this track, we talked about two different types of people here. One that's being the fixer, right? And then one that is leading people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe trying to fix. I want to go to really, how has learning to trust yourself changed the way you lead and care for other people? I'd love for you to dig into that, because I think part of what I want to get to is the person who doesn't even realize they're a fixer. While you're talking about that, like, when did that light bulb come on? How did it come on? How can you get people to recognize, oh my gosh, I'm doing that thing and I need to stop and listen? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, another lesson I learned later in life. I think that came after the pandemic too.
Mhm.
And somebody that I love very dearly reached out with an issue, and my old instinct, so it's learning how to stop and not go down the old pathways, those neural pathways of like, oh yeah, I used to just fix everything, and literally having to say, okay, what is it that you need from me in this moment? And the answer wasn't, I need you to do everything. The answer was, I just really needed somebody to listen to me today. And I'm like,
Mhm.
whoa, and in taking that from a family or a friend perspective, and then in a work environment, right? You have to model the behavior that you want to show. So it's shifting it from control to more of clarity. You don't have to control every situation. You don't have to manage every outcome to be effective. And this is where the whole like teaching you to listen more. I said earlier, before this podcast, I went and did yoga instead of going crazy with like, oh, I'm going to just study all my old notes. I'm like, you know what? I need to trust the message within and just get out of my head and trust the instincts that I already have, and helping your team do the same thing, but modeling that behavior and creating the space so that people can show up as they are. Because if they think that you're just going to take control, well, they're going to say, what's the point? But
Mhm.
if they know that they can ask for your advice, and that doesn't mean you're going to take over the project, and then you ask more questions instead of, be curious about what it is that why they feel there's a boundary or a barrier that needs, that they can't get beyond. But if they can trust that you're not going to take over the whole project, it's like, oh, okay, then I'm willing to ask you questions as a manager, and you're willing to ask them. And when you're asking them questions, they're not going to feel as though you're trying to control what they're doing. So,
Your focus on trust, I really want to call that out, because I think I've heard you, I'm not counting, but I think I've heard you say trust like 3 or 4 times. And I think that that's so important. And I just want to take a minute and emphasize so much of what I'm hearing is trust yourself. Know yourself enough to trust yourself. Okay, Mark, I know you had a question. So, and
Well,
I
I was
jumped
going to
in.
let you follow that path on trust. If you did, you have a question you wanted to ask Susan around that?
I just wanted to triple underline it.
Yeah. Okay. And it might tie to the question that's come to my mind. Eh, I work a lot with emerging leaders, with people who maybe are in their first time leadership role. What advice would you give to them, or even maybe to existing leaders who don't have a team that's working well together and that doesn't have that level of trust and that doesn't have that level of caring for each other, the compassion that we're talking about? What advice would you give to those leaders to say, this will help you build a compassionate team?
Well, modeling first, modeling the behavior. Um, not it's humility. So all these values, they actually mean something. Modeling with humility. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. The mere fact that I'm going to keep learning till the day I die means that I will never know everything. And even the wisest people I know are so humble. It's amazing. So, get to know your team, get to know what their values are and what makes them tick and why do they care? What do they worry about? What do they care about? And ask more questions. But don't hold it against them, right? You really have to model the behavior, create the space with grace. I like to say create space and grace because we all make mistakes. And I think I've had good leaders who they say, like, I don't know everything. And they ask the team. I have more respect for that. I have more respect for somebody that says, I can't do it all, but I have a team who can, and they honor and respect the different team members. So if you get to know what people's, not only what do they care about, what are they good at? And it might not be something work related. It might be like, oh, I'm a really good knitter. Oh, that's cool. And who do you knit for and why? And then you find out some really interesting things about people. Like I said, youngest of 6, all my siblings are completely different. So that team starts at home, and take those lessons into the workforce.
And I'm going to follow that up with a different, the other end of it. How do you make sure that's sustainable? A lot of times it's easy to have a good, trusting, compassionate team when things are going well. And I'm hearkening back to some of my experiences, you can probably tell, where when things were going well, it's easy to have a team that trusts each other and that everything's great. Economy changes, business processes changes, leadership changes. It throws some wrenches in there, or you get really high pressure situations, and sometimes that falls apart. So how do we sustain that environment even in difficult times?
I think it's in the good times. It's not. Oh, I say. Probably shouldn't use this word, but some people are credit whores. They take all the credit and then they push all the blame. But really, when there's credit, give the credit to the team. Show it in the good times. Call people out for good stuff. Use those times to do that. Like if you meet a goal and you're the one who goes to lead the management team and or the customer or whatnot, point out the team that's doing well. Likewise, if something goes astray, like when I was in manufacturing, a part wouldn't, like this part broke, or there was a manufacturing issue, or we couldn't do a third shift or something like that. Not blaming, oh, it's manufacturing engineering's fault, or it's procurement's fault, or not pushing the blame, but saying, okay, here's the challenge. All right, we can't build this right now. What can we build? What do we need to do? Ask all of those questions. Come up with a new solution as a team. Don't push it down the throat of the team. Ask the team for input. Share information. Why did we all of a sudden have to do this? Oh, it's because our client is trying to roll out, we were rolling out cell sites at the time. And it was like, well, they want to roll out all these cell sites and they're on a faster rollout than we had expected. Can we do it or can't we do it? But respecting if they can't do it and why. Well, what's the holdup? Oh, it's me. I'm the holdup. I need to bring in more parts. Not mad, but what can I do to help? I think when you honor people in the good times, and you don't shift blame, you start to develop that trust in the hard times. And ask their opinions because you don't know everything.
Well, Susan, I could sit, I know Mark feels the same, and talk with you all day. There's so much wisdom in you. It's so beautiful, and I want to take a minute and thank you for the beautiful work that you do in the world, what you put out there. I was a part of your What's One Thing I Can Do campaign that you did in November, and I may have gotten the name right. Please, I may have gotten the name wrong. Did I say it right? What's
What
one
can
thing?
I do? What can I
What
do?
what can I do? Yeah, yeah. I think it's such a beautiful way to look at the self, yourself, what you're doing, and I you have such a commitment to yourself in evolving yourself and the way you're showing up. Like I can just see by the way you talk and the way you move through life, your accountability to yourself to be what you're asking of others. And that is such a level of integrity. And I just want to thank you for how you show up and who you are.
Oh, thank you.
So, with that, how can people find you?
Well, I think the best place to find me is on LinkedIn because that's my main social media platform, or on my website. My website is Pieces of I, Pieces, not of I, the letter I. Those are probably the two best. I'm on all the platforms, but those are the ones I really spend the most time on, and that's where my community is.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to turn it over to Mark to ask our final question.
Oh, I get the honor of the final question. Awesome. I love asking this question. What is one tip that you can give to our compassionators to infuse more compassion into their lives in the coming week?
Pause. Don't react. We always have a choice. And when something difficult happens, like the neural pathways, they're going to push you the old way. Take a step back. Don't allow fear. There's a lot of stuff happening in the world, but don't allow fear to guide you forward. Recognize it, appreciate what it's teaching you. Then you got to, pull back, pause long enough to notice. I have this 4A's, my A4 mindset: awareness, you stop; acknowledgement. So you might be triggered by something, but you got to acknowledge it and go, oh, what's happening right now isn't this moment. This is something that happened when I was 12 years old. Accept it. You have to move into a phase of acceptance, and then you can move to action. But it starts with awareness.
Beautiful. Beautiful tip. And I love that. Yeah, if we can slow things down just a little bit and be a little more intentional, we'll bring our best self into play. Thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom, and for sharing with our compassionators. And thank you to all of our listeners for being with us today. We hope that you have a great week where you can be more aware, and look at ways that you can build these stronger teams by infusing compassion into them. And that team could be at home or at work or in the community. So thank you for all your good work, everyone, in helping us build a world where there's more compassion. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.